Andrew mentioned that we need to create an enabling environment. Now, when I travel around the world, I actually challenge people on this. Why? Because the enabling environment they're asking Nigeria to create before foreign investors come in doesn't exist anywhere in the world. They want zero risk and high returns. That's it. And if they do invest right now, their money is going to government. Or their money is going to quasi-government companies, which are companies that rely on their relationship with government to succeed as opposed to adding value in the market. So I think that we have, though, a perfect opportunity in Nigeria, a unique opportunity in Nigeria, for the local private sector to address every single problem we're talking about today. The local private sector has the opportunity to develop facilities and solutions in power, in agriculture, and transportation for the largest growing market in the world that is also one of the most underserved markets in the world. So why isn't the local private sector working? To me, that's the really critical question, because all of these issues that we're talking about are not going to be solved by government. They're not going to be solved by foreign actors. Those institutions have a role, which I'll come to shortly. So if we want to grow the private sector, we first have to recognize the situation that we're in. Government is currently 99% of our capital market. They are reducing their exposure, but they're still 99%, especially if you add in the quasi-private companies that I mentioned earlier. In order for the private sector to grow, we need a level playing field. So the primary policy I think we need from government is for them to ensure that the roadblocks which are preventing private sector companies that are adding value from growing are removed.
Let's look at the gas policy. What are they emphasizing? Infrastructure development, governance structure, creating incentive to make sure that gas is domestically used to expand the economy. We talk about power. Gas is not necessarily what you can use to be the base of power, but it's a transition fuel. What are we going to do after that? All of these things are necessary ingredients for diversification. The government also already gazetted a petroleum policy. What are they looking at? They're looking at governance. And I like the way the Honorable Minister said it. When he was listing the impediment, he didn't want to use the word corruption. And I agree with him. When you see it, you will know it. And all of you, you know it, even in your house. But he said two things that I want to emphasize on. Because the future is so important. If you are going to diversify, you need competent workforce. Second, he said something to the fact that transparency and accountability is very critical if you are going to move to the next level. And you have the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill, which to me, if it becomes law, the uncertainty about the oil and gas being the enabler of diversification will be clearly removed.
In the meantime, the oil and gas industry is dominated by the male gender, with a handful of women striving for inclusion. Of female engineers cope with some of the attendant challenges in the system. Experts at an industry-wide roundtable discussed the female gender relevance as well as the possibility of balancing work life with the demands of the home front.
I read somewhere where someone also said that if you want to create a thing, invite a man. But they want that thing done, put a woman there. So little wonder that in the recent times, our government has started putting women in charge of finance. But some of us who could think back, you know, when women are there, you get action. That is not to say that men can't do it, but it's just that they have too many considerations sometimes, and that holds them back. So for me, if you are committed, you will see opportunities. You will see opportunity despite all the roadblocks, despite all the problems, you will see opportunities. Now, when I was being introduced, you were told I worked in several arms of NNPC, ranging from research to science to, I can fit in anywhere. Maybe my corporation have come to know that I'm kind of a problem solver.
And for Tuesday's market performance, let's cross over now to the stock exchange. Bosun Omofaye has details of that. Good morning, Bosun.
Chimeze, good morning to you. It's good to be here. And of course, it's been a very interesting day. But of course, you know, yesterday it was all in the negative territory. And I'm sure you can see how the market is reading the entire political shenanigans that happened in Abuja yesterday. If you look at today's Business Day newspaper, and you can see the front cover story says, offshore bondholders panic, stocks fall as Nigeria political risk escalates. This is how Nigeria's leading business newspaper headlined what we saw yesterday. But if you look at the numbers, Chimeze, as you have said, this was investors' revolt on Tuesday. The stock market lost a little bit marginally, again, because you find gains in the consumer goods sector, which Nigerian breweries, the decline would have been much deeper than that. But if you want a bigger picture, go to the fixed income market and you find a bigger story. Treasury bill yields yesterday went up about 13 basis points to almost 12% because there was a major sell-off in short, mid to long-term treasury bills yesterday. Then you find on the bond market as well, there's a bit of a sell-off as well at the bond market for the Naira bond listed on the market. So you find investors reacting here negatively to what they saw as a political shenanigans and what the country face moving forward. So the first place you find reaction to what the political environment looking like is the market here downtown.
Okay, Bosun, I'm sure we will have time to discuss more on that, and that will be when we come back after the break. We'll look deeply into the securities market. Ayodeji Ebo of AfroInvest, of course, will be here with me.